How to do.
How to do.
That's right.
The theme of this panel is the same as the theme of this conference. Turn imperialist wars into wars against imperialism. And of course, that theme was inspired by the great revolutionary internationalist Che Guevara, who called for 2, 3, many Vietnams, fronts of struggle against imperialism all over the world, so that at some point the imperialist monster would be bled to death and die. As we've often discussed here at Black is Back, our mission is to make whatever contribution we can to bring down this imperialist monster, and to do it as quickly as possible, because the sooner that the monster is brought down, the more millions of lives that can be saved. But it better be a quick process, because we won't have a habitable world to live in if it's not done quickly, since only a command economy that can create methodical plans can possibly reduce emissions and avoid a catastrophe. Command economies command that capital do things that capital, the lords of capital, don't want to do. China has a command economy. Whether you think that economy is socialist or not, it is certainly a command economy that can put forward 5 and 10 and 30-year plans for what it wants to do, and it makes those plans most of the time. We, in the United States, actually also have a kind of perverted command economy. We have a dictatorship of capital. We will see if the Chinese are as equally skilled at reducing emissions as they have been at growing their economy. But we know that the lords of capital have no intention of doing anything that threatens the rate of profits. What the capitalists have commanded in their perverse version of a command economy is that corporate profits take priority in all circumstances, even if the world burns and drowns. And in fact, the process of both burning and drowning has already begun. This is, I think, the first time in history that the revolution has been under a deadline. Scientific socialists like us have always prided ourselves in our commitment to analysis of the situation. And we use terms like pre-revolutionary situation. That roughly means that it will soon be time to launch the assault on capital, but not right now because it's not time yet. It's a pre-revolutionary period. However, a wounded and angry planet Earth has its own schedule. Mother Earth has issued an ultimatum demanding that the people overthrow the rule of the rich so that we can stop poisoning the earth and killing off the birds and the insects and other species. And if we don't do that, if we don't comply with Mother Nature's deadline, then she is through with us. So, Mother Nature has put all of us purported revolutionaries under a kind of duress, demanding that we do things that we had not been prepared to do. Mother Earth is demanding that we speed up this process of deposing the filthy rich and their filthy ways, and that we come up with a plan and we come up with the demands that are commensurate with those of Mother Nature. This is not a people's schedule. This is not a revolutionary schedule. This is Mother Earth's schedule. And we were reminded that that applies to us in Black is Back Coalition when the Sunrise Collective endorsed this conference yesterday. We are appreciative of that endorsement, and I'm sure that the coalition is going to reciprocate by putting bodies in motion in some of the Sunrise Collective's actions, and that it will reciprocate after great thought and discussion by elevating the status of the environment as a Black is Back coalition arena of struggle. When I was on the bus coming down here, I reacquainted myself with the 19 points that we drew up on Black self-determination. And I paid special attention to the point on climate change. That's the very last point of the 19. And it struck me that the right to self-determination and the right not to go extinct, either as a people or the whole world's people, that those things are very closely related. I'm not sure that the right to not be made extinct by somebody else's greed is a minimal aspect of self-determination or a maximal aspect of the right of a people to determine their own destiny. But something in the wording of point number 19, of our 19 points, something is missing in the urgency of point number 19 on climate change and self-determination. This point should spell out something very declarative in terms of people's right to resist the poisoning and death of the world, and to do so by any means necessary. Now, of course, that kind of language will get the coalition classified by the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security as environmental terrorists, on top of our current classification as Black identity extremists, and of course, being dupes of Russia. That last category, dupes of Russia, I hope all y'all know that that's what you are. That category is growing by leaps and bounds in this country. The corporate media and the Democratic Party throw everybody who objects to their never-ending wars, they throw everybody who makes that objection into the pro-Russian trash can, and then they dismiss us. They dismissed and slandered Tulsi Gabbard, a sitting member of Congress. And if they can do that to a damn near white woman, a sitting member of Congress, and an officer in the U.S. Army, well, you know that they are getting rather hysterical, you see. In fact, we have not had that kind of casual slandering of U.S. government officials and members of the U.S. military since the 1950s. And in fact, when McCarthy, who gave the name to that whole Red Scare, when he stepped that far and started talking about communists in the U.S. military, that's when Eisenhower and the rest of them said, oh, you've gone too far now. You're destabilizing the regime. And they stopped McCarthy. These people have already crossed that line, and they've only been at it for 3 years. So there's something very hysterical and important historically that's going on here. The reason is that the capitalists fear that they have lost control of the narrative, the story that is told to justify what they do. They know that their version of history is not believed by the masses of people. And in fact, it is not believed. And we call that, in our jargon, we call that a crisis of legitimacy. It does not mean that the masses of people want right now the fall of the regime. But it does mean that the people no longer believe what the regime says. And that is quite bad for the regime. That's why the rulers are panicking. They're slandering Democratic Party politicians, and they're slandering their Republican president. And that is the equivalent of the ruling class defecating in its own nest. They further delegitimize themselves. We can't take credit for that. They are doing that on their own, which shows that they are in political disarray. A government that is seen as illegitimate at home cannot rule over the rest of the world. So U.S. imperialism has a crisis of legitimacy. It's not just the Democrats, it's not just the Republicans, it's not just the U.S. government as it reigns over us. U.S. imperialism has a crisis of legitimacy. And I never thought that I would say this after all these decades. But I believe that U.S. imperialism is now quite fragile. There's nothing robust about it. It is in psychological as well as all the other kinds of retreat. Its economy is now #2 behind China, based on purchasing power parity. And sometime in the mid-20s, China's economy will reach double the size of the United States, probably in 5 or 6 years. Of course, we don't know if there's going to be a world collapse economically in that time, but if it occurs in the same way as 2008, China will come out of it in a lot better shape than Europe and the United States. And so there could be even a greater difference. I'm being told that my time is up. I had stuff to say that I thought was so bad. We'll save it for next time.
Why you save it during the time?
In terms, thank you. In terms of this fragility, it means that there are many fronts of struggle. There is the fragility of the US dollar. There is the fragility that we note with the crisis of legitimacy. There is the fragility that is blatantly apparent in the fact that the US military, which is on paper the strongest in the world, cannot deploy troops to the energy-rich Mideast. Yeah. They can't do that because of what happened in Iraq. Yeah. And the people will not stand for the use of masses of US troops in a land war in Asia. And that forced President Obama to mobilize tens of thousands of jihadists, Al-Qaeda, to bring down the government in Libya. And then try to do the same thing in Syria. But those forces are on the way to being defeated. So what is the option for the US now? He can't use his damn army as a gendarme, and now it's losing the ability to mobilize Islamic jihadists as foot soldiers of imperialism. This is a very fragile imperialism. Any one of these fragilities can become crucial. That is, can cause the collapse of the imperial regime. And I think that the process is already well advanced, and that the younger people in this audience, the younger people in Black is Back, will witness the fall of the regime. And of that I am certain. Power to the people.